What's good with y'all, man? My name is Tej, and in this video, I'm going to be showing y'all how to make a dancehall and R&B type of beat for Drake. And this beat is going to sound similar to a lot of the songs on his recent surprise album, honestly, Nevermind. I made this beat from scratch, so I'm going to be showing y'all my whole process of making the sample and adding drums to it. Per usual, I will have the finished beat played at the end of the video. And with all that being said, let's just hop into the sample. So for beats like this, typically the samples that were similar to this on the album had tempos that were around 120 beats per minute. Typically, they'll probably range from like 115 to about 130 beats per minute, but the tempo that I'm rocking with is 125. So jumping into the first melody sound, I opened up Keyscape and got this Rhodes ePiano preset. You can use any of the stock FL Studio ones or any other plugins you have. I went in and put in a super basic chord pattern. It's just 2 chords. The key of the sample is F sharp minor. So if we go over to the first chord here, it's just an F sharp minor 7. How you construct this chord is you just pick a note, you copy it up by 3 half steps, and then you copy that note up by 4, and then copy that one up by another 3. And then all I did was I changed the root note from F sharp to D, so changing it from the first note in the scale to the 6th. And this gives us a D major 7 chord. But an easier way to think about it or construct it is just copy this chord over and then move the top note down by 1 octave and 2 half steps. And you may notice that the note placement is not exactly on grid and the velocities are randomized. In order to get the strum effect, I hit Alt S on my keyboard. I use the strumizer tool and just use a combination of these 4 knobs. After I had the strum down, I hit Alt R on my keyboard to pull up the randomizer tool and then just use this velocity knob to randomize the velocities. As for effects on that, I just left it dry. You could put like a low cut if you want to cut out some of the percussive noises, but I just turned the attack up. Once I had my ePiano melody down, I opened up Analog Lab and I went to the Abelia Bank and I got this Cloudy Day pad preset. As for the MIDI, I pretty much just copy and pasted those same chords in there and then just leveled out all of the velocities. And for effects on the pad, I first put a low cut EQ and then I put on RC20 on the sad piano preset. I turned off the noise and I think I adjusted the wobble and space knobs. Once I had those first 2 chord patterns, I opened up Trillion and I got this bass preset and I put in this pretty straightforward bass line. As you can see with the ghost notes, it pretty much just follows the root notes of the 2 chords, but using this kind of different note spacing. Typically for bass notes or like 808 notes, you'd see spacing like this. If I hold Alt on the keyboard and use this arrow here and I drag it down, you can see that these hit on the same spots as they did previously. And I just used that sort of feel for the entirety of the bass pattern. So after I put down that bass line, I opened up Arcade. I opened up this Rest Assured bank from the Hooked line, and I turned down all of the effects and left a little bit of ripple verb. And using this, I laid down 4 vocal chops, all starting on the first beat of the even measures. For effects on that, I put on this primarily low pass and high pass EQ with a cut in the low mids to cut out some of the muddiness. And then I put on some reverb. I believe this is the venue preset, but I adjusted the size, decay, cut knobs, and the dry and wet. After the vocal chops, I put in this flute echo preset from Xenology, and I kept the notes real simple on this one. I just had like a few accent notes just to add an extra layer to what we already have melodically. For effects on that one, I opened up RC20 and I got this Producer Grind Verbtastic preset. This RC20 preset and the next one are both from Producer Grind's free experiment club pack. I turned off the noise and I think I pretty much kept everything else the same. I opened up another RC20. I used another Producer Grind preset and this is the Portal preset. The only thing I did was turn off the magnetic. And for my last layer of the sample, I got this Perc Loop from that same Producer Grind experiment club pack. Originally the Perc Loop was at 150 beats per minute. So in order to make it the same tempo, I just opened up the audio clip menu here and I changed the mode to stretch and then adjust this time knob until my audio clip was 8 measures long. So once I had each of the elements of the sample done, I rendered each of them out as audio clips, except for the Perc Loop, and I arranged each of the stems accordingly to make the whole loop, and then I exported it as an audio file. Once I had that rendered out as an audio clip, I imported that into a new project file, and I made the tempo 125 beats per minute, the same as the sample. And then once I imported the sample, I went into the audio clip menu and I changed the pitch down by 400 cents. So the new key of the sample is D minor. For the drum sounds, I'd say I kept these pretty simple. I kept it to about 5 or 6 sounds. But what really made the rest of the beat cohesive was using transition sounds and a couple automation clips here. So for the first 2 drum sounds that I put in, I layered 2 different claps together. So the first one sounds like this and the second one sounds like this. I layered them so they both hit at the same time. The clap and overall drum placement on these types of beats are pretty different from trap beats. Typically, I've heard the claps being put on the 2 and 4 beat instead of just the 3rd beat of every measure. For my next sound, I put in this kick. I feel like the kick really sets the tone for a lot of the groove and the bounce that is in this beat. And looking a little closer, you can see it has a really similar bounce to what was in the Pluck Bass. And I also adjusted a lot of the velocities just to add a little bit of more bounce to it and make it sound more live. Next, I put in the first of my 2 hi-hat patterns, and both of the hi-hat patterns use different sounds. So the first hi-hat pattern has this sound. For the most part, this only just layers with the kicks with like a couple different accent notes here and there. And similar to the kicks, I also adjusted the velocities. For these types of beats, if you really want that drum bounce, it helps a lot to adjust the velocities on your drum sounds. For my second hi-hat pattern, I imported this sound. And at first glance, it probably looks like it's way too fast. It's definitely really fast for a hi-hat pattern, but it's also a lot more subtle compared to trap hi-hats. And honestly, this is actually really simple to make. So how you make a pattern like this is you just go to your hi-hat sound, you right click on it and hit fill each 4 steps. And then in the piano roll, you don't want to highlight anything. Just hit Control C and Control V and then move these notes so that they are equal distance apart and scroll it so that the velocities are staggered like this. And then you're going to hit Control C and Control V again. And this time you're not going to move any of the notes. You're just going to move the velocities down so that they're staggered similar to this. And once you've done that, you just copy it over for your full 8 measures and you're done. So this in context with the rest of the beat sounds like this. And for the effects on it, I put this bandpass EQ. It cuts out the lows, but more importantly, it cuts out the really high treble frequencies. So it makes the hi-hat sound a little bit more subtle, and it still allows the rest of the beat to have space in that range. For my last individual drum sound, I put in this bass. And the bass pattern is really simple. All it really is just corresponding with the same root notes of those chords. So if I move this back up to F sharp, you can see it's just the same root notes of F sharp and D, but adjusted for the key, which is 4/2 steps down in D minor. And the only significant thing here is that there's a transition note between these two right here. There's a transition note between these two. And for effects on that, I put a limiter on it, and that was meant to sidechain it with a kick. As for overall sound effects, I just used this riser transition in a few different places in the beat just to make the transition sound a little more clean. The last thing I did was put in this automation clip, and all this automation track is doing is just taking a high cut EQ on the sample and then just adjusting it gradually down and back up. So how you record in this manual automation clip is you open up a new pattern and then you put it in your playlist. And once you do that, you want to open up your mixer and open up the effect that you want to automate. You want to go to the record button right here, arm it, select notes and automation. And once you do that, you want to hit play. And while it's playing, you just want to adjust your EQ band here. And then once you're done, just hit stop. And once you hit stop on the recording, you'll have your new automation clip in the playlist. So that's gonna do it for this one. Hope you all enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Be sure to hit subscribe if you want to see more like it. Leave some feedback and let me know what you'd like to see me do next in the comments below. And that's gonna do it for me. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.